Hi everyone, I'm Amanda, that's me, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Julia, and we are on an adventure to find Ireland's disappearing lakes, also known as Turloughs. I'll often say Turla because I don't have an Irish accent. And Turlough directly translates as dry lake. So hopefully by the end of this video, you will know more about these unique wetland systems.
Okay, we found our first Turlough. So clearly it is empty right now, but after large periods of rain, this will actually fill up from underneath because of the karst topography found in Western Ireland, which is where we are. Karst topography is formed when the limestone in the ground is degraded by slightly acidic water. And the water becomes slightly acidic because rain, H2O, mixes with the atmospheric carbon dioxide, forming carbonic acid, which is just a slightly weak acid. And that mixes with the calcium carbonate in the limestone, and it essentially weathers it, and it degrades, and it forms all sorts of like caverns and caves underground. And then you get things like these sinkhole depressions, and these in particular in Ireland are called Turloughs. So after a period of a large rain, the water table below the ground raises up, and then these actually fill from below after a large period of rain. And the locals describe them as little whirlpools when they drain. So I think of it as like a bathtub or a toilet draining down. So this one, a few weeks ago, was actually raised all the way to the top and filled with about 6 feet of water.
Where do these occur?
Yeah, so Turlough is just the local name for these depressions, but you can find disappearing streams and lakes in other parts of the world, in other karst regions. So karst topography makes up about, they think, 5 to 10% of the landscape in the world. You can find it in regions in southern Europe, in Croatia and Serbia. And you can also find it in the United States. Like the majority of the state of Florida is a karst region. And the western part of Ireland is also a karst region.
How do you know how deep they can be?
Some Turloughs can be very deep, and just as large as a regular lake. Some Turloughs actually don't fully drain because there's so much water and they're so close to the level of the water table. So some actually end up being perennial, but many of these small ones are very ephemeral, and that definitely limits the types of organisms that will live in them and utilize them.
So after finding those baby Turloughs, we wanted to find one that still had some water in it. So some locals told us to go up the hill, down the country road, into the sheep's meadow, yada yada, and we might have luck finding a Turlough with some water in it. So we find this meadow. I start walking towards the sheep, kind of assessing them, realizing that they're more afraid than I am, and I go up the hill to see what I can find. And as I get right up to the top, a little distracted by the sheep, I see it, the remains of a Turlough. And then, of course, get quickly distracted by the sheep, definitely started chasing them until I realized I probably messed up some poor farmers' grazing patterns. And then I got back to admiring my awesome find. So once we get a bit closer to the center of this receding Turlough, we start to see these sedge species, and that makes sense because this type of vegetation can handle a variety of soil types, and they're in the portion of the Turlough that's going to have the longest flood duration, meaning the greatest amount of calcium carbonate deposition. So they need to be pretty robust. So after finding that Turlough, I was pretty happy, but I knew we could do better. So it was time to head back to Dublin, and we left the little town of Turlough. Yes, we found a town called Turlough, and kept our eyes peeled as we drove.
We found one! We know this is a Turlough because you can see the fence that goes through the pasture when the water is lower. So we have found a big one. You can see a bunch of waterfowl, different types.
I decided to get a closer look because at this point that seemed to be the theme of this adventure. And as I got closer, I was pretty excited to see a few different species of overwintering birds. And the seasonality of these birds coincides with the lake phase of turloughs. But unlike lakes, turloughs are particularly good feeding grounds. And this is because they're normally shallow and wide, gently sloping edges, and the entire basin floor is covered with vegetation. So it's pretty perfect for them. And just like that, we're back to reality in Dublin with all of its traffic. But it was all worth it to learn about some of the most unique, ephemeral, karst wetland habitats in the world. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video just as much as I enjoyed making it and learning all about turloughs.